what's up everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. So today we're doing the Canelo Sweepstakes. After every Canelo fight, I usually like to talk about the potential suitors for his next fight, who he's going to fight next. Canelo's the cash cow, and I like to go over that. Now, before we get into that, if you could smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate any and all support that I get as I continue to build my channel up here. So as I said, Canelo is the king of boxing in terms of being the face of boxing, you know. People can talk about Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia, but Tank never did any more than 200, 300,000 pay-per-view buys prior to Ryan Garcia, and the only reason he did so many for Ryan Garcia was because that was a totally social media based hype type fight. Ryan Garcia has a huge following on social media. He's really caught a lot of attention. He's a good looking kid with a lot of power, and he really, before he became a legitimate guy, really a star was already in the making and born. You know, he really cashed in on the social media side, and Tank is a good solid name. And the fact that these two shit talkers, young guys, were finally getting it on really attracted a lot of people. But Tank is not going to sell that unless he fights another top tier guy. Canelo is selling, he just did between 600,000 and 700,000 buys against Jermell Charlo, who is a, you know, highly regarded you know, fighter, but maybe not even a superstar. So, you know, Canelo is the face of boxing, and the sweepstakes to land the Canelo fight are major. So what I do when I do the Canelo Sweepstakes videos is basically I discuss the guys that have been being discussed, the real possibilities of who I think he could fight. This is not like the what's next videos that I do, where I go through the top 10 of the division that they're in, and maybe one or two if they go up and down. And I'm still going to do one of those next week for Canelo. But this one is basically these 6 options that I see, and I narrow them down 5 or 6. Actually, it's 5. The 5 options that I think are next, and I narrow them all the way down to 1. So, all that being said, here's let's get it started. Number 5. It's Dimitri Bivol. Now, which will be a rematch. Now, everybody wants to, well, you know, there's a lot of people that want to see Canelo try to avenge this loss. He gets a lot of criticism for not making the rematch happen. Not completely his fault, but I do think majority falls on him, because Bivol just wanted more money for the rematch, and Canelo said no. He was going to pay him the same. I'm sorry, if a guy decisively beats you, and Bivol did, and even if he doesn't, if you were supposed to win that fight and he decisively beat you, he should get paid more for the rematch, excuse me. Because Canelo's going to get more just on the pay-per-view, because now he'd be going into a rematch against the guy that beat him, so he's already more known than he was the first time around. And he deserves it. And he would be the defending champion going in at 175. But I don't think this fight happens for a few reasons. One is Canelo's with the PBC now. I don't think the PBC would want, unless Canelo demanded it, I don't think they'd want to bring a guy over from Matchroom to fight, you know, Canelo. Even though technically Canelo's a PBC guy for the next 2 fights. For 2024, he's with the PBC. I think they would if he really demanded it, but I think they'd prefer to use their guys against him. That's the point of the 3-fight PBC deal. So I don't see it from that angle, but the more important angle, I don't think Canelo wants this fight. I think he knows that size and skill-wise, this guy is just better at 175. Canelo's gonna have a tough time beating him. Now, if Canelo was smart and really wanted to fight him, he would accept Bivol's offer of moving down to 168 and challenge him for his super middleweight titles. The fact that Canelo didn't do that shows me that Canelo doubts that he can even beat him at his own weight, which I think is sad, because Canelo should be trying to avenge that loss. I do believe that. And it could set up a third fight if Canelo were to beat Bivol. And I'll tell you this right now. Bivol's been a career light heavyweight. If he drops 7 pounds and comes down to 168 to fight Canelo, I honestly would pick Canelo going into that fight based on the weight drop. You know, that'd be the equivalent of Chad Dawson coming down to 168 to fight Andre Ward. I absolutely think if they would have fought at light heavyweight, different fight altogether. Dawson asked to come down to 168, and Andre Ward said, okay, you want to come down to my weight? I'm more than willing. And Dawson got the shit kicked out of him. I absolutely believe the major reason for that was the weight cut. And I think it would be equivalent to that, or maybe it wouldn't, but we'll never know if Canelo doesn't accept the fight at 168. But I don't believe he's going to. But then again, he's fired up after this victory. He might want to avenge that loss. And he might accept it at 168. So I do still think the fight is possible. I just don't think it's going to happen based on Bivol not being a DAZN guy and Canelo really not wanting to fight Bivol. So that's where I land on that one. Number 4 is Terrence Bud Crawford. I know a lot of people don't believe this fight's possible at all, but I do believe it is possible. I believe Canelo might be willing to meet like down at 164 and have, you know, Crawford move all the way up just for a super fight like that. And would anybody be really surprised? I mean, Canelo fought Amir Khan, who wasn't even at the top of the division. He was just a big name. And he, you know, it was for the middleweight title, meeting at 155. That was a 2-weight jump right there. Yes, I understand that. And this will be a 3-weight jump. But if Canelo was willing to make the weight cut, or more importantly, what if Crawford moves up and fights Spence next prior to the May fight and he beats him? Crawford might be down to meet Canelo in May after moving up to 154. If he beats Spence in the rematch, which I think he will, he might be willing to make that jump, and then it would be a 2-weight jump. You know, so I really don't think that this fight is so ridiculously out of the realm of possibility. I really think this fight is possible and could happen. But I would say it's less than a 50% shot, you know, right now. But that doesn't mean that it can't happen or it couldn't happen. So I do think that this fight is possible and could happen between Canelo and Bud. Number 3, and it's very close between 3 and 1, I'll tell you the truth. Jermall Charlo. As much as I hate saying that, Jermall Charlo is in the sweepstakes. Canelo's original idea was to fight Charlo, and then Benavidez is what people are thinking. I still think that's a possibility, but that's contingent on Jermall Charlo beating Jose Benavidez Jr., beating him convincingly on November 25th. If Charlo comes back and makes that a convincing victory over Benavidez, then I think it makes it more likely that Canelo would fight Charlo, you know, ahead of fighting Benavidez or Andrade, who are fighting. So that's why I think that one's possible right there to happen next. But it really is contingent on how Charlo looks. If Charlo looks like shit, I think a lot of people are going to be like, well, the dude was out of the ring for 2.5 years. You know, he came back, he looked like shit, and you're still going to fight him. I think Canelo would receive a lot of criticism for that. So if Charlo does look very good, though, I think the stock rises, and it could be Charlo in May. Now, number 2 and number 1 are one and the same in my book. It's the winner of David Benavidez versus Demetrius Andrade. They meet November 25th on Showtime pay-per-view. I think, the possibility of Canelo fighting one of them next is high based on whoever wins the fight. I think it's going to be Benavidez. But, you know, if Andrade proves to everybody that he's what he's been saying this whole time, then I don't think Canelo can avoid him. You know, because he'll have done, both of them, a win here will be what Canelo asked them to do. Fight each other and then come see me. So I really believe that that is a possibility. I don't think he can avoid it anymore, especially if it's Benavidez. If it's Andre, depending on how he wins with his style, I don't think Canelo should avoid that fight. But with his style, Canelo might be a little more hesitant. With Benavidez, though, he's already laid a lot of work down and done well, and is deserving more than Andre at this point. And it's a more intriguing battle because of styles clash, and then it's an all Mexican war, and it would be on one of the on a Mexican holiday, so it's kind of unavoidable that way. So I really believe that it's possible for the winner to land Canelo next, or should land Canelo next. But here's a roadmap that I could possibly see of 2024 for Canelo, because he's got the 2-fight deal. I really believe that there's a couple ways this could work, and really it depends on who wins between Charlo and Benavidez on November 25th, and Benavidez and Andre on November 25th. That night is going to sculpt Canelo's 2024. And here's why I say that. Because there's a bunch of possibilities. I think if Charlo looks great and like knocks out Benavidez or looks fantastic against him, it's dominating, it's one-sided, I think it's very possible that Canelo says to the winner of Benavidez Andre, hey, I want you to fight on my undercard. I'm going to fight Charlo in May. I want you to fight on the undercard, and if we both win, we fight in September. And that would build, especially if it's Benavidez, because he's the favorite over Andre, that would build their fight even stronger. Canelo, boom, boom, it's good to go. Like he did last year. He signed on for Bivol and then already had Triple G lined up for September. I think if Canelo does that, that would build that fight with Benavidez especially, and even Andre, it would build that fight extensively. It really would. But I also think there's a possibility that Canelo fights the winner of Benavidez Andre in May. And here's why. It gives him more time to train and focus on who he's got to fight. Gives him more time for that. But at the same time, it also gives his opponent more time. So I think there's also the possibility that Canelo could save the winner of that fight for September, have them fight on his undercard in May, because they would have less time to train and get ready. So there's a lot of moving pieces here. But I do believe a fight with Benavidez Andre in May, if he wins, he wins. If he loses the Benavidez, say he loses the Benavidez or Andre, then his third fight of the contract's in September, or later in the year, depending on what he wants to do, how much time he wants to take. He has an automatic rematch, boom, he fights him again. Signed, sealed, delivered. His contract is up and he's good to go and he's set. And that could be it. Or he could say, I want to fight the winner of Benavidez Andre in May, and then I want Bud in September. That way Bud has time to fight Errol Spence earlier in the year and establish himself at 154, and then move to 168 to challenge Canelo in September. That's a big money fight too. So I really believe those are the possibilities. Or you could be, they could be laying the work for, maybe Bud says, hey, if Charlo's going to stay champ at 160, I'll beat Spence at 154, and then I'll move to 160 and beat that Charlo in May on the undercard and set up that showdown with Canelo in September. Again, there's a lot of moving pieces, and the PBC has all the pieces to make all this fit. A lot of possibilities. But everything, in my opinion, relies on the Benavidez Andre showdown. What do I want to see is the last thing I'm going to say. What's the scenario I would prefer to see? It's tough to say. There's an A and B scenario for me. There absolutely is. Personally, I don't want to see him fight Charlo in May. I want to see him fight the winner of Benavidez and Andre based on who deserves to be in the ring with Canelo next. That's purely based on that. But if they decide to say, okay, Canelo fights Charlo, which is a softer touch than Benavidez or Andre, because the winner will have proven that's a softer touch, and also all his time out of the ring. It's still a solid opponent. He's the bigger Charlo, so people wouldn't criticize him so much for fighting the smaller Charlo. And then it sets up, as long as it's contingent on the winner at Benavidez or Andrade fighting on the undercard against somebody and then fighting Canelo in September, you know. And then the backup plan is, say Benavidez or Andrade, the winner of that, fights on the Canelo undercard in May and loses, then Canelo could say, hey, I can fight whoever I want in September then. I don't have to fight that guy now. And that opens the door to somebody else like a Bud Crawford fight, something like that. I would kind of prefer to see that just to build for Canelo Benavidez in September, because that's what I think it's going to come out to be. But at the same time, I'm definitely okay with Canelo fighting Benavidez in May. You know, gives him more time to train for the fight and focus on Benavidez and his weaknesses and stuff. It gives him more time. But, you know, but I think I would prefer to have that fight build more, you know. And for Canelo, I think a couple advantages that he has over Benavidez at this point, it's not just experience, but the longer David stays at 168, in my opinion, the more that you know, is bad for him, because he's a big guy. And I think Canelo should have fought him a couple years back when he was really struggling to make the weight even more and wasn't as focused. I think Canelo should have fought him already when he was a little less experienced. Now that he's more experienced, David definitely has a shot. I would still pick Canelo, but David still has a shot. So, and a good shot because of his size. So, I think, you know, Canelo needs to really sit back and look at the fight with Benavidez and Andrade on November 25th, and look at the fight with Charlo and Benavidez Jr., and then look at when Spence and Crawford are going to fight and join all those together. But he also needs to really, really consider Bivol at 168, in my opinion. I really do think he'd be smart to do that. You know, again, Bivol asked for it, as Chad Dawson did with Andre Ward. So Canelo should not be criticized for taking that fight, because he goes in the defending champion and he would be the favorite. And I really think the outcome would be much different with Bivol moving down in weight. So all those possibilities, Canelo's really going to have to sit back and think about hardcore. But I definitely think it's going to be an exciting big fight in May. Canelo seems pumped up and ready to close the final chapter of his career out with a bang, impressively. And I'm looking forward to his 2024 altogether, but especially who he's going to fight in May. So we'll see what happens, but that's it. That's what I got. That's my Canelo Sweepstakes video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.